More than that, Mayo replied, his shadow stretching across the drawers of fake wealth. It's a flood. This isn't just a guy in a basement with a scanner. This is a factory. It's bleeding the West Coast dry, and it's spreading like a virus through the bloodstream of our commerce. In the sterile light of the vault, the H to H38 bills looked perfect, but Kelly knew the truth. They were a lie, a beautiful, high-resolution lie that threatened to buckle the very foundation of the nation's economy. Somewhere in California, a man was playing God with a printer, and they were nowhere close to finding him. Chapter 1, The Mechanic of Inglewood, Lawndale, California, 2004. The heat in the body shop was a physical weight, smelling of Bondo, burnt rubber, and cheap coffee. Albert Talton wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead with a grease-stained rag. At 41, Albert was a man of quiet intensities. His hands, though currently covered in the grime of other people's car repairs, were the hands of a surgeon or an artist or an engineer who had walked away just before the finish line. Albert had grown up in Inglewood, always up to no good, as the locals joked with a grimace. It was a neighborhood where the sun seemed to bake the asphalt into a permanent state of tension. He had seen the gangs, the drug trade, the quick money hustle. Most kids he knew saw the streets as a path to power. Albert saw them as a series of broken systems. His obsession with how things work began early. While other kids were learning how to aim a pistol, Albert was taking apart a Bose speaker system in his garage. He wanted to understand how such a small box could produce such a deep, soul-shaking bass. He didn't just want things, he wanted to know the architecture behind them. He had a gift for reverse engineering the world, a talent that had led him to electrical engineering in college before the pull of the hustle and the boredom of a 9-to-5 life made him drop out. The system is built to keep you working for someone else's dream, Al, his friend Paul, used to say. Albert had taken that to heart. He didn't want to fix cars, he wanted to fix his life. "Hey, Al," his boss called out, leaning over the counter of the small office. He was holding a crisp $20 bill between two fingers, looking at it as if it were a dead insect. "Take a look at this." Customer tried to pay for an oil change with it. Albert walked over, his curiosity piqued. He took the bill. It felt off, slightly waxy. The colors were a fraction of a shade too vibrant, like a sunset in a cheap postcard. "It's a fake," the boss grunted. "A bad one." The pen turned it black immediately. Albert held it up to the flickering fluorescent light. He didn't see a crime. He saw a failure of craft. He saw poor resolution, a lack of layering, and a total misunderstanding of the substrate. "I could do this better," Albert said. The words were quiet, almost a private thought that had escaped into the air. The boss laughed, a dry, hacking sound. "Yeah, sure you could, Al. Just get back to that transmission. We're behind schedule." Albert didn't go back to the transmission immediately. He stared at the bill for a long minute. To him, The $100 bill wasn't just money, it was the ultimate engineering challenge. It was the most defended object in the world, guarded by watermarks, security threads, color-shifting ink, and a century of Secret Service paranoia. If he could crack the code of the dollar, he wouldn't just be rich, he would be the smartest man in the room. And for a man who had already spent time in prison for bank fraud, a man who felt the system was a game rigged against people like him, the challenge was irresistible. That night, Albert didn't go home to sleep. He went to a local electronics store. He walked past the high-end TVs and the laptops. He stopped in front of a mid-range, all-in-one Hewlett-Packard inkjet printer and scanner. Startup cost $199 plus tax. He bought it with genuine currency. It was the last time he planned on doing that for a very long time. Chapter 2. The Laboratory of the Absurd. The townhouse in Lawndale began to transform into a high-tech alchemist's den. In the living room, there were no photos of family, no decorative trinkets. Instead, there were stacks of paper, hundreds of different types. Albert became a connoisseur of texture. He spent weeks at office supply stores, feeling the weight of newsprint, the tooth of cotton bond, the slickness of vellum. U.S. currency isn't paper, Albert, he muttered to himself, his eyes bloodshot under a desk lamp. It's cloth. 75% cotton, 25% linen. You can't buy that at Staples. He sat with a magnifying glass, deconstructing a genuine $100 bill. He saw the tiny red and blue silk fibers embedded in the surface. He saw the watermark of Benjamin Franklin, not a print, but a variation in the thickness of the paper itself. He tried printing on various surfaces, but the inkjet ink would bleed, blurring the fine lines of the engraving. He discovered that most modern printers used CMYK ink that sat on the surface, while genuine currency used intaglio printing ink forced into the paper under immense pressure, giving it a raised, tactile texture. One afternoon, he found himself staring at a roll of recycled newsprint. It was thin, porous, but had a certain dead quality to it that felt remarkably like aged currency once it was handled. He had a breakthrough, the sandwich method. If he printed the front of the bill on one ultra-thin sheet of newsprint and the back on another, he could hide things in the middle. He spent 3 days perfecting a glue mixture, a secret concoction of starch and adhesive that wouldn't make the paper stiff or brittle. Inside the sandwich, he printed a faint, mirrored image of Ben Franklin. When held to the light, it appeared as a watermark. He did the same for the security thread. Using a thin strip of polyester film, he'd salvaged and printed with microscopic text. But there was still the problem of the pen. Every cashier in America had that yellow highlighter, the iodine-based detector. If the paper contained starch, the iodine would react, turning the mark a damning black. Albert tried everything to neutralize the reaction. He tried chemicals, bleach, and even specialized coatings. Then he looked at his girlfriend Allison's vanity, a can of Aquanet hairspray. He sprayed a test sheet of newsprint, let it dry, and ran the counterfeit pen across it. The mark stayed a bright, beautiful, golden orange. The chemicals in the hairspray created a barrier that prevented the iodine from reaching the paper starch. Not white rain.